Tappy has just released Arc 7 Chapter 54, and this will be a summary of the chapter. I highly recommend you check out my Arc 7 Chapter 53 summary. Anyways, let's begin. We see Subaru crying as Olbart scratches his cheek. It was a horrible experience, the 10 seconds of despair that happened to Subaru, and then the 11 seconds which came after in which he overcame the situation. How many times had he died in those 10 seconds? It's a miracle that his despairing, worn down soul did not shatter after such a hellish experience. Lewis clutched Subaru. Albeit Lewis doesn't have any memories of the loops, she held a similar fate to Subaru, dying over and over again. Subaru states that he doesn't understand her. However, he does thank Lewis. If it wasn't for Lewis, he wouldn't have been able to grab onto Olbart. Subaru's mind was in a jumbled mess. He knows what Lewis has done, but he still has to thank her. And with all of that, Lewis started crying. The tears just wouldn't stop. Lewis knew she was crying, but she made no attempt to wipe the tears away. She just clung to Subaru's arm. Yorna thanks Lewis and Subaru for what they've done. Subaru looks at Yorna's eyes and knows that beyond those eyes are nothing but kindness. As Subaru and Lewis cry, Yorna says it's fine, that it's natural for children to cry into the chests of adults. With that, Yorna hugs Subaru and Lewis. Olbart says he doesn't know how to react to the scene and Yorna just tells him to shut up. The scene changes. Yorna asks if Olbart wants to apologize for his behavior, and Olbart states that Yorna attacked him first. Olbart seems really unresponsive to apologizing. Either way, it was not wise to speak against Olbart, because after all, if Olbart stopped abiding by them, then it would be impossible to stop him. Subaru asks about the jutsu which is on him, the technique making him small. Olbart states that it's a secret technique. However, if he's dead, there may not be a way to solve the issue. Think of it as an insurance. In other words, if Yorna had in fact killed Olbart, Subaru, Medium and Owl would still be children. Yorna states she doesn't know the details, but knows that Olbart treated Subaru and Lewis badly. We see that Subaru didn't tell Yorna that Olbart shrunk him down to a kid. Once the kid technique is undone, Subaru would apologize to Yorna. Subaru believes that Yorna would understand. Olbart is then asked if he admitted defeat in the game, and he said he did in fact lose. We see that Yorna believes that Olbart was the one who sent the letter of intent. With that, Yorna asks where Tanza is. After all, Tanza went to fetch the messengers. Olbart stated that maybe Tanza is in the castle, and Yorna states that she isn't. Olbart praises Yorna's technique. At the time it makes sense then, when Lewis and Subaru entered the castle, Yorna showed up randomly. She stated it was coincidence, but she most likely detected the intruders and then couldn't tell whether or not they were enemies. So she then decided to protect them until she knew what was going on. Subaru knows that Yorna is caring, so Subaru doesn't know if he should get her involved in the war over the Valachian Empire. Yorna makes it so that those in Chaosflame don't need to suffer the prejudice and be ostracized. It's no different from the world that Subaru's love, Emilia, wants to make. Subaru looks over the city of Chaosflame. It's the ideal city, it's the future, and he doesn't know if taking Yorna away from the city is the right thing to do. Yorna again asks where Tanza is, and Olbart states that he joined with Tanza to make the right conditions for the match. Yorna again asked where Tanza was. Olbart said it was very obvious. He's a stranger, so there's only a few places he can hide Tanza. The scene changes. Before the entire conversation took place between Yorna and Olbart, we see the inside of an inn. It was big and sturdy, and the walls were soundproof. We see a large lavish room, which looked like 3 separate rooms combined with all of the walls removed. There was also no art or anything on the walls. Despite being known as a lawless zone, Chaosflame has freedom. We see Abel with Medium and Owl talking to Tanza, and not only that, Kahuma is also present. Kahuma is getting agitated and threatens to attack Abel and the rest. and Al wonders if it's a good idea to piss off Kahuma, before muttering if he should even be following Abel. Abel remarks that it's Al who is following him because he's too scared to be alone, and then Al apologizes. Medium chastises the way Abel is treating Al. We see Medium and Abel work together to find this location, and they also had to protect the useless Aldebaran. Abel says that this isn't the place to be soft with words. After all, we see that Kahuma is threatening Abel and the rest, so if you misspeak, you could die. Still, Medium says that you shouldn't talk like that, and that's also the reason why Subaru and Lewis ran away. Despite that though, Medium can't blame Abel himself, because she knows her demeanor, gaze and mannerisms were also a factor in them running off. Kahuma is told by Abel to put down his hand, and Abel states he isn't going to fight. Kahuma asks if Abel is some sort of king, considering he's too willful to answer any of Kahuma's questions. Abel says that Kahuma is not far off the mark. Despite Abel revealing he's a king, or at least hinting at it, since he's wearing the demon mask, it prevents Kahuma from realizing who he is. Kahuma gets angry and seemingly wants to attack Abel and the rest, but is told to stand down by a handsome man with black hair and black eyes. This man states that the visitors are not enemies. Kahuma states that the man with the mask is rude. He hasn't shown his face and isn't showing respect. Not only that, he's with a child. Kahuma is asked what's wrong with children, and Kahuma states that it's weird that a masked man is with two little kids. Abel states he has business with the messenger girl, Tanza, and the false emperor states to not talk to him like that. Al and Medium are just standing there with a weird expression on their face as they see the real emperor talk to the false emperor, and they sound exactly the same. This is no doubt Chisha Gold imitating Abel's mannerisms. Some might even say he comes across as more able than Abel himself. We see that Tanza was given to the emperor for safekeeping by Olbart, but Olbart hasn't returned yet. With that, the false emperor stated he would no longer protect Tanza, mainly as the false emperor seemingly worked out what Olbart was up to. Tanza states that everything was orchestrated by her, and the false emperor states he will find out from Yona herself what's going on. Tanza bowed to the false emperor, then looked at Abel with clear hostility. Tanza states that she doesn't want Yona to take part in the war, as Yona is everything to her. Tanza kept saying please, essentially begging Abel. Medium and Al didn't expect that response, but it made sense. Without Yona, the Horned People's protection would be gone. Abel had a feeling that many people would feel the same way. This is due to the soul marriage technique throughout the city. It's not something that can be given on one-sided love. It has to be mutual love. Abel stated that the answer will be made by Yona, and Tanza hanging her head won't make anything better. Kahuma got angry. He most likely had no relation to Tanza, but felt a desire to protect her since she was young. Tanza stated it's up to Abel to decide, as his goal may be too far. However, Yona may find a way to achieve Abel's goal. Abel asks if Tanza knows what's in the letter. Tanza says no, but Yona had the smile of a maiden after reading it. We see from that response, Tanza knew that Yona would not refuse Abel's request, so that's the reason why she orchestrated everything. Abel then asks Tanza what her next step is. Even if Tanza is killed, she could still order the inhabitants to attack Abel and the others. Tanza remained silent, and Abel knew from this that Tanza planned to actually die for her cause. Abel realized that Tanza factored everything in. Al and Medium react negatively to this silence, asking Abel if he's going to let Tanza die. However, Abel states that if Tanza dying is part of her plan, then why would he let her die? Because that would be actually helping Tanza out. Hearing this, Medium seems happy. With that, Abel says dying should be more efficient. Abel states Tanza will retract her orders given to the Horned People. Tanza doesn't want to if Yona gets swallowed into the war, but Abel says regardless, Yona will be swallowed by the war. Abel then looks at the false emperor and states no matter what happens, he will deal with whatever happens. Abel states that his will not change. There's no way to change it. The way out is burned, and there's only one true way, to let it burn your soul. The false emperor then says, let's leave it at that. Abel tells Tanza to look up, and that he will use everyone efficiently as part of a war. After all, a person should die efficiently. With that, Al was getting excited at the prospect of Tanza calling off the attackers. He was currently scared of everything. Abel also explains that he knew Tanza was here due to knowing how Tanza thinks. He also believed that Tanza might have been at the castle but prioritized this location. Hearing that, Tanza's eyes flash. With that, Tanza cries and admits her loss whilst apologizing to Yorna for her immaturity. The scene changes and Abel speculates that Tanza's tears still could be a trick. Al is agitated and Abel reminds him that just because he's Priscilla's clown doesn't mean that he won't be discarded if he's useless. Medium wants to find Tarita, but Abel states that Tarita will find him faster than they can find her. With that, Abel ponders on finding Olbart and thinks about the riddle, Abyss with a good view. Abel decides to go to the castle, stating that when Abel told Tanza that she may have been at the castle, her eyes flashed with emotion, which may seem to indicate that Olbart is at the castle, which suits Olbart's personality. Al was happy with finding Olbart as he wanted to get back to Subaru, as he was worried about Subaru being with Louis Arneb. However, Abel stated that he doesn't plan on letting Olbart undo Subaru's shrunken form. He's fine with Al and Medium being returned to normal, but not Subaru. Aldebaran grabbed Abel in anger, and Abel said that Aldebaran heard what Subaru said. Medium asked if that's why Abel was bullying Subaru, and Abel says that he doesn't bully anyone. Medium states that it's obvious Abel wants to find out something from Subaru, and instead of asking Subaru, he's using roundabout methods. Abel states that it's necessary, and Medium is wrong. Al asks why Subaru should remain as a kid, and Abel states that because he meets the conditions. Al is missing an arm, and Medium is blonde with blue eyes. Abel states that the situation is still the same, but the pieces are falling into place. With that, the scene changes. We see Olbart state that Tanza is where he's lodging, and Yorna is happy to know where Tanza is. Yorna apologizes on Tanza's behalf and bows to Subaru, and Subaru says it isn't needed. Subaru started blushing, and Yorna asked what was wrong. Subaru remembered how many times he kissed Yorna, something that Yorna couldn't remember, but it was a random memory which came to mind. Yorna makes a move to get Tanza, and Subaru wants Tanza to not be scolded that much. Yorna of course realizes that maybe Tanza was overwhelmed and wants to hear her side of the story. Subaru wishes Yorna's opinion of him doesn't change when he goes back to normal. Subaru made his way to leave, and Olbart says, "Where are you going? Doesn't he want to be turned back to normal?" And Subaru mutters about his clothes. Apart from that, Subaru is scared. He's scared that if he changes back to normal, his feelings towards Louis will change. Despite that, he states he will face Louis properly when he's back to normal, and Louis does her usual screech. With that, Subaru steps up to Olbart, and Louis and Yorna watch, and Yorna says that she's watching Olbart. Subaru states that he hopes Yorna's opinion of him doesn't change, and she's confused. Olbart struck Subaru, and the sensation Subaru felt was similar to when he was struck before, the interaction between Olbart's hand and the ode, his soul. Subaru thought about the 10 seconds of death, but the 10 seconds of death was not return by death. Subaru then wonders what happened to return by death. We see Olbart's hand pierce Subaru's chest, but his arm disappears. Yorna grabbed Louis and jumped backwards. The upper part of the castle was shrouded in darkness. Kahuma, who is nearby, tells the false emperor to look at the castle. Nearby, Medium tells Abel and Al to look also. We see Al screamed harder than anyone else in the city, and Medium went to support him. Nearby, Ublik and Tarita see the darkness, and Ublik comments, "Ah, so that's what you are hiding inside you." Abel, looking at it, clenches his fists and bites his lips. The scene changes and we see the murmurings of love, the constant repeatings of "I love you," a cursed love that transcends all dimensions and paints the existence of Subaru. Subaru knew of a world without love. Then what hell is there with a world filled with love? Subaru doesn't know. Chaosflame is a utopia for those that have been ostracized. The collapse of that utopia which will be brought about by Natsuki Subaru. And with that, the chapter ends. Well, that was quite a long chapter, and that's most likely going to be the final chapter. And now we're going to get a hiatus, so that's the cliffhanger. So it's fairly obvious what happened. Subaru was looping with Ao's ability, and as a result, Satella didn't know where Subaru went. So when, after the ability subsided, or Subaru got through the sort of territory, when Olbart interacted with his old gain, that allowed Satella to sort of come out to see where Subaru is, of course, and now Satella is going to just wreck up the place. Now, do keep in mind that this is only going to happen for one loop, because like Subaru, Satella can remember what's going on. So when Subaru dies and resets, Satella's going to know that Subaru's okay. So she's not going to come out a second time. So what's really good is, do you notice how Aldebaran screamed? Again, we're going back to this idea that Aldebaran knows Satella. So the reason why he screamed so loud is because this is Satella. This is, I'm assuming he cares about her, but this is really big. I can't wait for the next chapter. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but we need to wait and see. It's really interesting that Ublik seemed to know that something was inside Subaru, but didn't know what. And now Abel's like, what the hell is going on? But yeah, this is really good. I think I know the whole return by death looping scenario. I've kind of worked out what exactly happened. I'm going to have a video about it, and I'll go more into depth about what's going on. But thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.